Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another fun episode of Bon Voyage Besties, your favorite go to podcast for friendship, travel, and a little bit of humor along the way. My name is Rachel, and I'm joined by my amazing co host, Rosa. And today's episode is absolutely perfect for anyone who's dreaming of a wonderful cruise vacation, but isn't quite sure where to begin. Believe it or not, Rosa and I, we've never been on a cruise, so we are very, very excited for this episode and we are welcoming Theresa Russell to the show. Theresa is a cruise expert and avid traveler who has spent years exploring the world and helping others discover the joy of cruising. What makes Theresa's approach to travel so special is her philosophy. The best way to experience a destination is through its people. Whenever she travels, her goal is to meet locals and understand their lifestyle, culture, and everyday life. In recent years, Theresa's travels have taken on a new dimension after experiencing vision loss. But while the way she navigates the world may have changed, her passion for travel and her belief that it should remain accessible and meaningful has not. So, if you're like Rosa and I and have never taken a cruise and you want to learn more, you're curious, but you feel a little overwhelmed by all the options, then this episode is perfect for you. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Theresa. We're so happy to have you.
Well, I'm happy to be here too. And I hope I can convert some people to the cruising world.
Well, you already
Yes.
had me when you mentioned the word Tahiti, so
Yeah, fantastic. So, Teresa, before we dive into the questions, would you like to tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself?
My gosh. I started as a travel writer, and actually my first cruise was to Tahiti. And I thought, well, I don't know about cruising then. It took me about a microsecond to say, oh yeah, I really have to experience it myself, not go by what other people say or hearsay. And my husband and I wrote a book about bicycling, and I got started in the writing business that way. And I've been doing that for a long time. And at one point, I decided to supplement the travel writer's income that maybe I could be a travel advisor because I've been to a lot of places and I could share the experience. That was very stressful for me because I worried about all my clients having the best vacation ever. And then COVID happened, and that was a good stopping point. But I learned a lot there, all the behind the scenes things about cruising.
Yes. Yeah. That's really cool. I've always been intrigued by being a travel advisor, but I definitely feel like it could be overwhelming.
a lot of
Very
pressure.
overwhelming.
For sure. So, for someone who's never cruised before, so Rosa and I, what makes cruising such a great way to travel? Sell it to us. We want to hear it.
Okay. For one of the best things is that instead of you moving every day to a different hotel, your hotel moves with you. So you get on the cruise, you don't have to pack up every day and be out by noon or, and check in after 4. You're there. You don't have to worry about any of that. And then everything is there for you. I mean, every ship includes meals. Sometimes there's extra pay meals, but you could really get on a ship and not spend anything extra if you didn't want to. So when you have choices of food, and it's just, you go to every morning, you wake up in a different destination. So it's very exciting. There's a new place outside. You didn't have to go to the airport to fly there. Go find a hotel, go find a place to eat. They're all right there. There's entertainment. It's wonderful.
I like what you said about the hotel part, that it moves with you as opposed to you constantly having to change hotels ever so often. So that definitely is very appealing for me.
I think it's appealing for a lot of us. I mean, I know sometimes you have to leave one hotel because it's checkout time, and then you have hours to kill before you get into the next hotel, and then you have all your luggage, and yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I especially hate it when like the checkout time is like 11 a.m. I mean, I can't do it. I don't know what's been with me and early checkout times, but I just can't bring myself to do it. I always double check, can it be a noon checkout, a 1 p.m. checkout? Because that can be
Right.
like stressful. And then, like you said, you're hanging around with your luggage, you're waiting for the next hotel to let you check in. And that's even worse if you're jet lagged. Like I've been there multiple times. So just like the convenience of a cruise sounds very appealing to me because sometimes like traveling can be very stressful and it's nice having all of those logistics taken care of.
Right. And you have a choice. You can just hang out. There's a lot of places to go to within the ship. I mean, if you're at a hotel, there could be a lobby, there may not be. Your room might not be really comfortable. It may or may not have a balcony. So there's just so much to do.
Very exciting. So, like Rachel said, neither one of us have gone on a cruise. My family, they're huge cruisers, and my cousin's actually turning it's her 50th birthday in April. They're doing like a family cruise, and unfortunately, the timing just did not align for me. So, I was hoping that this was going to be my first time experiencing the cruise because they always rave about it. But I'm going to be honest, like in my mind, when I think of cruises, I don't know. It's just something about it that I feel like it's not going to be as fun, or maybe the food is not going to be as great. So these are random misconceptions that I just kind of have made up in my mind. But what would you say are some other common misconceptions that people have about cruises?
Some are interesting. They are afraid of pirates,
I mean,
which is a
I'll
good
be
one.
afraid of that too.
Yeah, but I
Don't
never
steal
thought of
Don't
that.
take my gold.
Right. Or sharks. And I will say I have never seen a shark from a cruise ship, but the other fears are just that you'd be trapped and you're at sea and you're not in control. I think it's a big control thing. And then that you might get seasick. But even if you do, there are remedies. When my sister first sailed with me, she got seasick. She's like, "Oh, I don't think we could ever cruise again." And I remember the crew, they were just so wonderful. They brought ginger ale and apples to her. And I said, "You don't need to worry about this, Jess. Take," and I'm not a doctor, just so take something in advance. So she just got some seasickness pills. And we've cruised many times together since then.
Yeah,
And
that
then
makes
some
sense.
people think, maybe there's not enough to do or it will be boring. Or like me on my first cruise, I was very concerned that it'd be forced bingo and things like that.
I mean, I do love bingo, so that would be a selling point for
A
me.
lot of people love bingo.
I see you being really good at bingo, Rosa.
love
Like I
bingo.
see you being like on the money with that.
Oh, yeah,
You can win good prizes. You can win a cruise.
you're selling me.
That's amazing. So, yeah, let's go back to Tahiti because I'm really intrigued by that because that was like your first cruise. What were some misconceptions that you sort of had about that cruise to Tahiti and how did it surprise you? Can you tell us a bit more about what that journey was like? Because I've always wanted to go to Tahiti, not gonna lie.
And you should still want to. I haven't, that was, 30 years ago at least. So I want to go back. And I had been to New Zealand before. And I know you're never supposed to use this word, but it is very lush. I mean, just the greenery and the flora there and the color of the sea. I mean, oh my gosh, it was amazing. But one of the things I found was some of the passengers were interesting. Like 2 women, I was traveling with a friend. We had breakfast with them, and can you believe, like, there aren't any malls here? And it's like, yeah, we think we have an event to go to. And it's like, why would anybody think there'd be malls in Tahiti? And they were very disappointed.
My gosh. I can imagine like flying all the way out to Tahiti. You have like the gorgeous beaches, the wildlife, like the vibrant flowers, the blue waters, and you're just like, where's the nearest mall?
Exactly.
Maybe they wanted some tax-free shopping or something.
I do not know. But I will say
Hilarious.
one thing, I was pretty prepared and did my research, which is key for any new cruiser. Do your research. Don't show up on the ship and be disappointed or find out that maybe it rains for brief periods of the day in a tropical rainforest.
It's so true. Like we always advocate for doing your research and like it's pretty easy to do now. Like we have social media, we have blogs, we have podcasts. There's just so many wonderful resources like at our disposal. Like in a lot of ways I feel spoiled because when I first started traveling solo, it was a lot more limited. So I feel like nowadays it's even better. Always do your research, kids. You don't want to be walking into any surprises.
Always, and there are a lot of cruise groups that you can hang out on. There's like Cruise Critic is a big one. and that's general, and they have meet and greets they organize, and you can go there and ask questions or do your research or like, can I walk from here? Is the port in town? What about this? What about that? Are there ATMs somewhere? And Facebook has a lot of fan clubs, like almost every cruise line, the fans of Royal or the fans of NCL, and then various names too, because there's competing groups. But it's a good place to do research and just look through and decide, now, does this sound like a honest? I mean, some of the things you read there, why people didn't like their cruise because their taxi was late or they had a bad driver. It's okay.
It's like, take it with a grain of salt. I feel like Facebook reviews, I'm part of a couple of different groups and I do research when I'm traveling to a new destination. And sometimes I'll go on Facebook and I'm part of a couple of different groups and people are like brutally honest on Facebook reviews. And like you said, sometimes the reviews have nothing to do with like a destination. It could be something as simple like that. Like I had to wait too long for like a taxi, which could be valid. But I'm like, okay, now you're just like knocking this destination down because of long wait times for a taxi. Like, come on. There's bigger things to kind of complain about or that can really go wrong in a trip. So I feel like sometimes with some
Exactly.
of these reviews, you have to overpass certain things because people can be a little too brutal.
Yes. And sometimes you can see right through it. It's like, really? Is that the biggest problem? That your taxi was late? Yeah, it's stressful. But as long as you had planned ahead and left extra time to get wherever, you can deal with it. So,
Yeah, definitely. I remember one of our earlier episodes, I forget the episode number, but it was with Shane, who is a pilot, and he was talking about flight delays and how he met someone who was really upset that they missed their cruise, but they had booked the flight either like the day of the cruise or the day right before and didn't account for delays. So I see like people like that doing it and writing the negative reviews. It's like, was this really negative or was it just like truly poor planning on your part? Like you do have to read in between the lines. So, Teresa, I know for me, when I was younger with cruises, I read way too much about the Titanic, and I think it kind of scared me. So it was a big worry for me. Whenever my mom would look at cruises, I would bring up the Titanic, and she would be like, "Rachel, I'm looking at the Caribbean, and the Titanic was in 1912. Like you're crazy." But besides that, what do you think first time cruisers worry about the most? If you had to pick like one thing that first time cruisers really get concerned about and how to address it.
I think maybe they won't have a good time, that maybe it's all hyped up and or they could be bored or they don't like their fellow passengers or the food. I think it's all the unknown that causes some stress. Will I get a chair by the swimming pool or am I going to have to sit one row back? I sit at a table with people I like, which that has changed a lot. Most cruise lines now, you do have the option of, well, no, NCL start at freestyle. You can go when you want between certain hours and sit where you want. So it's not like every day you have to go sit at table 112 with people you may not enjoy.
It's like I want a new seat.
And you can ask. I've been on a cruise where we had some very interesting table mates.
Sounds like
Yeah,
some good stories.
I have some good stories.
Definitely want to hear about that. But what would you say would be the first thing someone should consider when choosing their first cruise?
First thing, find a good travel advisor who specializes in cruising. Because some people think, oh, if I go on this cruise, it's just the same as this. They're all different. Otherwise, every cruise would be the same. So every cruise line, even though if they do have ships and visit the same ports, there's something different about the experience. You know, maybe you like all the roller coasters and the race cars and the frilly things on a cruise. And maybe you're more sedate and you just want to chill out and read every day. So a good travel agent can guide you and find out what your likes and dislikes are and hopefully match you to a cruise that suits your personality.
Yeah, that's really true because I know, like, with different cruise lines, the itineraries I notice can be similar, but the experience can be wildly different. So I definitely like that advice of finding an advisor who specializes in cruises in particular, because it really is like a whole other world of travel and you need to really like know it thoroughly. Like, you don't want to be trying to like book your first cruise on your own. Maybe you see an itinerary that you like, but say you just want to go on a chill vacation and you end up booking a party cruise, I could see where that would end up being problematic.
Right, right. And a good advisor will know which ones are typically which. Usually it's the shorter cruises, especially out of Florida, that tend to be party cruises. It's 3 or 4 days, but you can also always find a place, I always say, to hide, a quiet place on the ship,
We
even
were
if it is a party cruise.
so this was a couple years ago, but we were convinced of my parents' neighbor down at the shore. He's like, he's older, he's a little older than my parents, but he went on a cruise with his wife and he's kind of like a quiet guy, but we were convinced it was one of those party cruises because he was describing the itinerary to us. And my parents are like, we don't know about this. We think this is like a crazy party cruise. And it was also supposed to be like sweltering hot that week. And my dad was just like, I want to hear all the stories when he gets back because we're pretty positive that this poor man picked the wrong cruise. So it is really true that it's essential. So I guess you would say it's really important that picking the right cruise line, it has to fit your personality and your travel style.
Exactly. And a good advisor will know that. And then there are the people who sail just for the ship. They don't care about the destination. The ship is the destination. So that's important too. I mean, do you really care about going ashore? And I have traveled with people who I'll say they don't even remember. I'll say, oh, yeah, we were there. No, we were never there. Well, but they enjoyed the ship and the shows and the bingo and the classes and sitting by the pool.
Actually sounds kind of fun. Like, I'm thinking about taking classes like on a boat and just having like all these activities. I don't know. That sounds like really relaxed. I've had a stressful week and this is appealing to me.
And like you said too, it's like very low key because all right, these are the days that I'm traveling. I'm going to be aboard this cruise. When it docks, if you want to get off, you can, but everything essentially is there for you. So I think, like you said, making sure that you're picking a cruise that matches your personality and your travel style will definitely enhance your experience. So if you are that type of person that you just kind of want to relax on the boat, then making sure that it matches your style and your vibe is definitely going to be really important.
Right. It really is. And especially if you've traveled a lot or cruised a lot, a good time to enjoy the ship is when everybody's in port and you can have the pool to yourself and the bar and you can have the run of the ship
Just leave me at the bar.
and you'll have a choice.
It's like, which one do I want to go to today?
Exactly.
Just go bar hopping.
And you can meet people on the cruise, even if you travel. Rachel, you said you travel solo.
Yes, most of the time.
And I did that a lot too when I could see better. You meet people. There's groups, we'll say NCL, they have studio cabins that are for one person, but then there's an area where you meet with all the other solo travelers and they'll plan events like a dinner, going to the show together, or even going ashore together, and then people become friends.
That's really cool because like there's like a misconception, like particularly with solo travel and cruises, that you have to pay all kinds of supplements, that you're not going to meet anybody, that it's challenging. So it's really refreshing to hear that there are ways that you can like connect with other travelers on the boat and make friends.
Yes, there are. And there are sometimes supplements, but if you have a good travel advisor, they will find the sailing dates where it's reduced or there isn't one.
Yeah, so find a good travel advisor who
Yes.
specializes in cruises, kids. Like, that is essential. And the other thing that's always essential is money. I mean, I joke a lot about how I use my credit card every single day, but I do try to be mindful of things. So, what are some of like the differences between budget and luxury cruise lines? Like, if someone's like picking a cruise, like what are some of like the drastic differences between the two and how should they decide?
Well, one would be the money, the luxury. And often the luxury cruises are all inclusive, and that can include all your liquor, your specialty coffees, wine at dinner, specialty restaurants, gratuities for the crew. Sometimes it can even include the airfare, ride to the airport, and those are more expensive. But one thing I always told people, if you like to travel, like say you're on a mainstream cruise, like say you're on Royal and you like the upper suites, you should really check and see if a luxury cruise might cost the same or be really close in price because of the inclusions. On the other hand, luxury cruises are usually smaller. So if you like all the toys and the big Broadway shows and the ice skating and the pool specials, then you should stick with your luxury suite on a mainstream cruise. And then another thing is the service. I mean, the service on luxury cruises is impeccable.
That sounds really
It's
nice.
like if you can splurge it, it sounds like luxury is the way to go. And I like the idea because for myself, whenever we travel, we always try to set a budget when we're traveling, especially as a family, because everything adds up really quickly when you're traveling as a family of three. So there are times when we travel to certain destinations that we're staying like in an all-inclusive. Last year we went to Tanzania, and when we were in Zanzibar for like about 3 days, we stayed in an all-inclusive resort, which was nice because we didn't have to worry about the cost of anything. Like we knew all of our meals were included, our drinks were included. So sometimes like it might sound like you get like sticker shock price when you get the number up front, but when you really start to kind of factor in like how much would I normally spend on food or like drinks, it really might not be as expensive as you would think it is when everything is kind of included and you know like all right, I'm paying this number from the get-go. You don't have to worry about taking your credit card out every time you're at dinner or adding on any extra. So sometimes the idea of the all inclusive, I definitely feel like it's appealing.
And many people do appreciate that. I paid this. I don't have to take out that credit card anymore.
Yeah,
Unless you want to go to
absolutely.
the spa or go to the gift stores. You can always find a way to spend more money.
I mean, we always find ways to spend money. So
Oh my gosh. Yeah, don't even get me started on that one. So, also, like, you kind of had me at service with luxury cruises. I'm like at the age where I really do appreciate phenomenal service and I just like love that. So, out of curiosity with the luxury cruises, are there any brands or cruise lines that you've experienced that you would recommend to listeners who perhaps have the budget to do something like that?
I actually would recommend any of the luxury brands. They're very competitive. So, they all have high standards because they want to keep their clients with them. And I haven't ever heard anything bad about one of the luxury cruises. They'd be out of business so quickly because people expect a higher level of service, dining, everything, even port visits, shore excursions. And a lot of the luxury cruises are smaller, so they can go into ports that aren't as crowded as if you were on a big ship. If you go like Cozumel and there's 5 or 6 big ships in port.
Yeah,
that makes
that
a
And
lot
they
of
also
sense.
have, the finer linens and, all these nice touches. And some of them, they don't really cost the cruise line might kill me. They don't, a lot of it is just the service, which is really free. But having said that, I will say you get great service on a mainstream cruise line too. So, just be kind to the crew. I always say without crew, there's no cruise. And it's true. And on some of the forums, I see comments about crew and they're interesting as well. So, I mean, just be kind to everybody and don't take advantage of your crew person. Honestly, they'll do just about anything you ask. Ask them about their families. They love to show pictures of their kids back at home. If you engage with them, I mean, I'm still in touch with some crew members from probably 20 years ago. Yeah, in fact, some invited my sister and I, to their wedding, which
Aw,
was kind of special.
so sweet. I
That's really
absolutely love
nice.
that.
We always say
Yeah.
that on this episode, kindness goes a long way. I work in a customer service industry. manage residential properties here in New Jersey and is very customer service forward. But I always say kindness goes a long way because you're going to want to go above and beyond. And at the end of the day, like we're here to do a job, and I'm sure the crew on the boat, they're there to do a job as well. So they're going to do their job to the best of their abilities, but they will go a little bit above and beyond for those people that are being kind to them and also kind of engaging with them as well. So kindness always goes a long way in any destination or travel space that you're in.
And another thing about luxury cruising, just as with mainstream cruises, each luxury brand has its own atmosphere and service, and there's something special about everyone. You might be able to have drinks in the ocean that, a wait butler will bring out to you while you're swimming. And yeah,
The
That sounds
luxury
perfect.
cruises sounds like right up my speed. Like I just came back from a press trip and this was my first time staying at a Four Seasons hotel and we were in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And when I tell you the on-site team, they went above and beyond. Everyone greeted me even by like my name and I was only there for like a few days, but they made sure that everything was just done. They were so pleasant and it was just like another level of experience that I'm like, all right, I've stayed at other not so fancy places and now I'm like spoiled because now I just want the same type of level of experience that I experienced at the Four Seasons. You treat yourself once, you kind of get spoiled too.
well, they have cruise ships, so you can just move over to the Four Seasons yachts.
I might have to save up for
There
that
we
though. So
go.
unless
Yeah.
they want to sponsor us, then we're willing to try it out.
There we
Okay.
go.
Good.
Four
Somebody
Seasons
has to
yachts.
take one for the team.
Exactly. The three of us, we can just go try it out and report back. So, Four
Sure.
Yeah.
Seasons, if you're
Sounds like a
listening,
plan.
sponsor us.
Seasons, if you're listening, we will do a very super special episode with the three of us all about the cruise experience. So, yeah, sponsor us. But yeah, I love Four Seasons. It really is like a whole other level of service. But something else that you said, Teresa, is that the luxury cruises, they tend to be smaller ships. And I know, like at different travel events and conferences that I've been to, when I've talked to certain cruise lines, it always was a plus to hear from a cruise line that had smaller ships, just because I feel like the experience would be a little more like intimate. Like you said, you could go into ports that may not allow the big like cruise ship, so it's a little less crowded. But so I know for me that would be a really good decision. But how should a traveler decide between a large ship versus a smaller ship?
Well, again, I'll say get a good travel advisor. I mean, even the large ships, I can always find a quiet place if I just want to read a book or stay away from, the dance party or noise. I can always find a place. But one thing about the bigger ships, like I said, they'll have all the entertainment and the big shows. The shows are amazing, and when you think of what you would pay to go to Broadway and see one of these shows, I mean, it's a real added value to cruising. Now, on the smaller ships, they may have local singers and dancers or string quartet, so it all depends on what you like. I know some people would be bored by not having the huge ship with the shows or the big swimming pool. I mean, I'm going on a cruise shortly that doesn't have a swimming pool, but it's in the Midwest in April, so that's okay. But I'm not a pool person. I like visiting destinations, but somebody else, they want to take advantage of the dance lessons and the bingo and all the excitement. And that is not to say that more luxurious cruises are boring. It's just a different atmosphere. One time you might like the high energy of a huge ship. Another time you just might want to chill.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really important to know yourself as a traveler and what's important to you because it's true. It seems like the atmosphere really is what makes the cruise. So, how about like the destination? We've been talking a lot about the boats. What role does the destination play in picking the right cruise?
Again, it depends on the person. Like, I love Alaska, so just say Alaska and I'll be there. But for somebody who doesn't like the outdoors or doesn't like the cooler weather, not that it is always cold in Alaska, because it can be really warm there, hot. But if you prefer swimming in the ocean, Alaska's not the place to go. I think everybody should see it, but I enjoy nature and the outdoors. If you don't like that, that's not a cruise for you.
I think it goes back to what you said before is making sure you're doing your research. And again, if you are working with like a travel advisor that specializes in cruises, they'll be able to find and match you to a cruise that's going to match your travel style and also to the destination that you're going to, that it's going to be something that you're going to enjoy. I know for myself, whenever I have looked at taking a cruise, we're based out of North New Jersey. So there are some ports here in New Jersey as well as New York, but the destinations are always the same. It's like going to like the Bahamas, which I've been to, or going to other areas in the Caribbeans. So for myself, I always feel like, all right, these are destinations that I've gone to. I don't necessarily want to take a cruise and visit them again. And then when I look at different, cruises that are leaving, let's say out of Miami, then I kind of take a step back because now I have to factor in having to take a flight. And again, I feel like sometimes the destinations are not always as conducive to like my personal style, but I know
Mhm.
there's so many different cruises out there. And again, it's just about doing the little extra work and doing the extra research or finding someone that can do it for you.
And who has been there and can say, "Oh, you don't miss this when you're in this port," or I was on a long cruise from New York to Amsterdam and we stopped in France. And I've always wanted to go to the Normandy and the D-Day sites, but it was like a 3-hour bus ride. So each way. And it's like, I'll do that some other time. And that is something to watch too. Look to see how far or how close your destinations are. Because you may well, we'll use Rome. You get on the ship in Civitavecchia, which is about an hour away. So make sure you know, oh, we're coming into Rome. Oh, well, you have to take a bus ride or take the train in. It's all your priorities. If it's the one time in your life that you'll be there, maybe you should consider it.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the ports. Like, if there's something you want to see, definitely factor in like travel times. Because going back to things that maybe like first time cruisers worry about, I know another thing for me is what if I get distracted or stuck somewhere and I don't make it back in time and the boat leaves?
That's my biggest fear.
And that's especially bad, like maybe in the Caribbean. Like I've planned like in Mexico when you go down the Caribbean coast. I know which buses and how to get. If I missed it in Cozumel, I could get down to Costa Maya and then I could get to Belize. And I could figure it out, which I would never want to do. But one important thing too is always check the time. Are you on ship's time or local time? Because it can be very confusing. And I was on a cruise once. We were really close. The ship is blowing its horn because there's like 5 people missing. Well, their cell phones had turned to the other time zone, which was an hour earlier. Yeah, so that's another thing. Just be careful with time.
And that's interesting because I wouldn't have thought about that.
It will say all aboard time is at 3:30. So I always try to be there not at 3:30, like before 3:30. And there are the pier runners. And the ship doesn't always wait for them. So here you are in a port. Maybe you don't have your passport with you. Yeah, it would be a little stressful. So just pay attention to time. Don't drink too much at Senior Frogs or wherever. And yeah, you just have to be aware.
So just be mindful of your time or just stay on the boat like me and just be at the bar hopping.
There you go.
Play it safe.
Yeah, that's really, really true. I always think too, like I've done a lot of like group tours on my trip, whether it's like a food tour or like a day trip somewhere. And it's true, you always have people who are like showing up 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late. And I do always wonder about like those people on a cruise. I'm like, they would totally be getting like left behind in Cozumel or something.
Probably. I wonder how many people have been left behind more than once.
It's like that's their MO.
I could see that happening. Like, I always think, like, oh my God, there's no way that would happen. But then I like think about different things like I encounter, just here in our like state of New Jersey. And I'm like, I'm like, I could see where people would be left behind more than once.
Maybe it's like on purpose. They're like, maybe I do need to stay a couple of days extra in Mexico. Let me just like miss this
There
cruise.
you
Why
go.
not? So I know one thing we talk about on our podcast a lot. It's sometimes when you're starting something new, maybe starting small, right? You're traveling to a new destination, maybe picking something that's like local, a little bit more of a comfort. I know you mentioned sometimes the shorter cruise can tend to be a little bit more of a party style, but how you just say would be the importance of the length of the cruise, especially for a first time person experiencing it.
Well, like I said, usually, and I'm generalizing, but I guess it's mostly true that the shorter the cruise, the more of a party cruise it is. And I will say, I've been on a 4-day Holland America that's just kind of repositioning. They can still party there, but it's not it's the weekend. Let's party 24/7. I really think you should try the week-long cruise just because the 3-day is too short. And if it turns into a party cruise, unless that's what you want, then you may think I'm not ever cruising again. It was too rowdy or there are too many drunk people or yeah.
Yeah, I think a week's a good amount of time because, like you said, like anything shorter than that, it's like almost too short to appreciate the cruise itself. But at the same time, if you're trying something new, you wouldn't necessarily want to go for a month. Like I know people who've taken cruises that have been like 30 days long, but that may not be ideal for a first time cruiser.
No, especially if you're not. Now, I would do that in a heartbeat, but I know what's involved. But I'd have to go to a lot of new places that I haven't been to.
Yeah, totally. So, we also talked a little bit about budget already, and the nice thing about cruises is it seems like a lot's included. For example, some cruises, your meals may be included, but what are some like costs that first timers may overlook by mistake?
Well, one important one now with the price of oil going up,
Mm,
and one important thing I want to mention is read the terms and conditions of the cruise, which will say, I think it's still $80 a barrel. If oil goes over $80 a barrel, there will be a surcharge. And some people may not expect that. I know the Margaritaville at Sea, the Paradise, they already have a surcharge. But other things would be gratuities and your port fees. There's port fees, which you will, if you miss a port, you do get those returned to you. Liquor is usually not included on luxury cruises. It can be, but you can also buy a package that includes it. So again, your travel advisor can say, hey, here's a special where all this and maybe some specialty dining's included. And then you have to, like me, I have to fly. So I don't like it when my airfare costs more than the cruise because where
yeah.
I live, there's no cheap way to get anywhere, not anymore. So it's like,
No.
yeah, I
Yeah,
flew
travel's
for,
expensive all around.
yeah. So, the people live in Florida. I was on a Margaritaville at the Islander that leaves out of Tampa. Most of the cruise ship, they just drive to the port. It's like, you guys are lucky.
It's like jealous.
I wish.
I know. Well, you have two port. Are you on the coast of New Jersey? Are you close to
Yeah,
the
so
port?
we're in North New Jersey. So I know there's one in Bayonne, which is about like
Bayonne?
45 minutes an hour from me. And then in New York City, we have the port over there as well. So they do
Right.
have a
Yep.
lot of good cruises that leave out of this area, which is great. But again, every time I look like the destinations that they're going to, and then for me, I have a fear of being out in the open water. So I think that's another reason why I've never done a cruise because I don't know, I just feel like if I wake up and I'm looking out at sea and just see nothing but the ocean, I would be kind of like petrified. And again, these are just like fears that I have in my mind that I'm sure I can easily overcome.
Well, you should do a river cruise
That could be a good start.
because you usually see, unless the river's really wide at one point, you can see the shore. And it's not, you don't usually get like 15-foot waves in a river. So the seasickness is not there.
I've always been intrigued by the river cruises, actually. I didn't even think of that when we were recording. Like, my mom and I, we love traveling to Europe, and we have looked at the river cruises in the past because changing hotels every couple of days, like, and taking the train, like, I can do it and all, and I love traveling around Europe by train, but the river cruises have always really appealed to me.
And they're very nice. I did a Rhine River cruise, which is, I think, the starter cruise, for river cruising. I mean, it's just very nice. I mean, there's so many castles and part of it, I know comments I heard were, "Oh, it's industrial." Well, it's a working river, so you will go by some oil tanks or some grain silos and things like that. But, it's just so calm, and you visit really interesting towns along the way, and you don't get big waves, and you can
You're
see
not
the shore.
It, like, checks off all the boxes.
you're not in the open water.
No, 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 no. I'll skip that. But would you say that there's some onboard experiences that a first-time cruiser shouldn't miss? Aside from the bingo.
The first thing you should do is every cruise line will put out a paper schedule for what's happening. Be sure you look at that. They usually deliver it to your room the night before so you can plan out your day. And it usually does rip off so you can fold it up and carry it with you. Or they have apps, although apps have not always been my friend. And you can get on the app without buying the internet through the ship. And that will tell you what to do. But again, it depends on your interests. Like they'll have, say, like wine tasting. I've been on cruises that had a wine. You made your own wine. You mixed it yourself and you got a bottle of wine. Some people will organize cabin craws where you get to, everybody lets everybody see their cabins so you can see what different styles of cabins look like. There are lectures sometimes, like there might be meet all the officers. So, the chef and the captain and the engineers and the housekeepers will come and tell you about their jobs, which I think is nice. And then sometimes there's movies at night. I mean, there is so much to do, and I just enjoy. Take the tour of the ship that is usually offered on boarding day, so you can kind of get your bearings. And some of the bigger ships, a reason not to do a 3-day on the bigger ships, it takes that long to figure out the ship.
Yeah, that makes sense. I could totally see me like getting lost with only 3 days. And I really love the idea of a ship tour and meeting the crew because I've known some people who've worked on cruise ships and I just think it's absolutely fascinating. And I would like love to learn more about it. Like, I feel like the crew, they would be such interesting people, like we've talked about before.
And then I've taken classes like, learn to take better photos with your iPhone or, and, things I didn't even know about my phone. So those are nice. And once I got sucked into ballroom dancing, it was fun. I mean, it's a way
That's
to
so
meet other people.
Awesome.
That's so fun. It's like being in a Regency romance at sea. I love
Yeah,
it.
I guess. So there are a lot of fun things to do, and there's some, trivia that's popular.
Sounds so
So it sounds like
awesome.
And
there's
then
something for everyone.
there is. I just saw today, I think it's Royo is doing America's Got Talent. So
Awesome.
you guys better work on whatever your talent is.
They'd all be running down the hallway and hiding in all the cabins. They'd be like, oh God.
I always wanted to do stand-up, so there we go. Maybe I can
Okay.
work my way up there.
You should do it, Rosa. I think you should do stand up on a cruise. I would like.
No, they will throw me off the boat, so.
No, I'll come and see you. Yeah, let us
Yeah.
know.
Me too.
They
Me
have
too, Theresa.
they have very few women comedians.
It's true.
So we need somebody funny. We need a woman.
I'm a woman. I don't know if I'm funny, so.
We can go.
well,
We can both
halfway
go on
there.
stage.
We'll make
we can
sure
both
you
go on
are.
stage.
Thank you. Thank you for the vote of confidence.
You can do it. We both believe in you. We both believe in you.
Oh.
So Teresa, another question I have about cruises, like I know when it comes to booking airline tickets, I'll just like book stuff at random times and I'll just like jump on tickets whenever I feel like it. But I know with like something like a cruise, it does require some pre-planning. So how far in advance should someone book their cruise, would you say?
It all depends. And if you want like one of the special rooms, like say you want the owner's suite, those fancy rooms sell out quicker. So if it's a special occasion, you want that owner's suite, you better book as far in advance as possible. And then if you have to fly, there's always the air thing. And if you're flying in, be there at least 1 day prior, because that's when else people miss their cruise. Is especially now there were delays, and I know once flying out of Athens, We wanted to tour Athens, so we went in 3 days early, or we booked to go in 3 days early, and they canceled it. It's like we just got there a day before. I'm like,
That's rough. That's rough. I hate when that happens.
But it goes back to giving yourself that ample time, because imagine if you only booked it like a day before and you couldn't even get there on time to get on the boat. So making sure that if you do have flights, try to book it a couple of days in advance if possible.
right, exactly. And when you're leaving, don't book until after noon, usually. And I've been on ships where getting off the ship, took forever to get through customs. And yeah, a lot of people miss their flights. So, but other people will take a chance. Like in Fort Lauderdale, the airport's so close. It's like, okay, I'm on a 9 o'clock flight, and that would stress me out. But I guess it depends on how much of a risk taker you are.
Yeah, I know I would be stressed. I need to get to where I need to go early because otherwise I would be sweating bullets for
Yeah,
sure.
I definitely couldn't gamble it either. So, Teresa, what would you say for our listeners that are considering their first cruise right now? What's one piece of advice that you would give them?
And I probably said this 100 times, maybe. Find a travel advisor who specializes in cruises, but also be flexible, be open to new experiences. Don't let little things bother you. If you think somebody looked at you cross-eyed, don't, just move on.
Keep it moving.
Yeah, but being flexible, because sometimes ships can arrive in a port late. And if you read the terms and conditions, it will say that they may skip a port, like if the weather's bad. I think it took me 4 cruises before we were able to get into a private island because it was always too windy. So, and people, I went there just to visit there. Well, I really wanted to too, but I'm not putting myself in danger. And when ports are canceled, it's not just because the captain thinks, I don't feel like going there. There's a good reason. And safety is the first concern of the captain.
Yeah, and that's a good point about the flexibility. I know when we went to Athens, maybe like 2 summers ago, we did a tour and we met a couple that they were there on a cruise. And they said the two main places they wanted to go to during the cruise was Santorini and Mykonos. And they could not, because Santorini, there were too many boats coming in. So they ended up having to close the port. And then on their way to Mykonos, the wind was just not cooperating. So they ended up having to take a detour and went to a different island. So sometimes, unfortunately, the weather's going to dictate where you're going. So you can't get bummed out because, like you said, at the end of the day, safety is your priority. So you just have to be able to be kind of flexible. And I'm sure the destinations that you're going to are going to be just as beautiful. I know it is heartbreaking when you do have your heart set on
It
going to a
is.
specific destination. But again, you have to make sure that you're a little bit more flexible and understand too that it's completely out of their control. So not getting upset at the captain or the crew because now you're not going to that specific destination within that cruise.
You didn't know that the captain controls the weather. He has a little button up there on the bridge.
We'll add that to the list of people that complain about random things.
Yeah, don't try.
Like, why did you make it rain?
The captain made the winds go 60 miles an hour.
I was recently on the Margaritaville at Sea the Islander, and I didn't know that Tampa, maybe I should have researched better, often gets fogged in. So we were supposed to arrive in the morning. We didn't get there because they closed the port down because it's dangerous, when there's heavy fog. So we didn't get in until late that night. So we changed our flight. We're calling every time they delay us. Oh, can we change the flight? We didn't get out till the next morning. But you have to remember that everything doesn't always go according to plan. And so you just have to, be glad you got back safely.
Yeah, it's really true. I always say the same thing when a flight of mine is delayed or canceled. It's safety first, be flexible, go with the flow, have an open mind, and you'll likely have a good time. So, Rosa, what do you think? Rapid fire round for Teresa, cruise edition?
I'm ready. Are you ready, Teresa?
Wait, I need my cheat sheet. No, I know all these. No, I know all these.
I think you got this. All right.
Yes.
Would you rather window cabin or balcony cabin?
Balcony.
Yeah, I feel like I would want to be out in the balcony. Although, if I'm out in the open water, maybe I don't want the balcony. So I got to think about that
Especially if
one
you
for
see the
myself.
sea,
Yeah.
right?
Maybe I
If the
maybe no
ocean's out
windows.
there.
Put me in a room with no windows. Maybe I'll get a discount.
There you go.
Well, actually, you do. And
There you go.
I've stayed in inside. I'd rather spend because I don't stay in my cabin. I'm out and about. So if I can take extra cruises because I spent less for the inside, I'll do it.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I would totally do the same thing.
Some people say they're claustrophobic, so
your mileage may vary. So big cruise ships or small ships?
small.
I agree. I think I would like the small ships too.
It sounds like they're much more intimate, and they still have something to offer for every cruiser too.
And I will say though, if you invited me on, Behemoth of the Seas tomorrow, I'd be there.
Yeah, I would too, actually.
It sounds like we're just ready to go on a trip, wherever
think
it is,
so.
with whatever cruise ship.
It's the story of my life.
But what do you say has been the most underrated cruise destination that you visited?
I think it's Mahawa in Mexico, Costa Maya. It's a really great port, but a lot of the ports in Mexico are privately owned, and you walk out and you're like in this big, nice shopping area. And people were complaining about that port. And on forums, it's like, well, that's the commercial part. You have to actually go into town, and you can get great, like tacos and Mexican food, and it's wonderful. Nice beach. You go fishing there. It's one of
Sounds
my
lovely.
favorite ports.
Sounds really pretty.
That sounds absolutely lovely. So, what is one thing that you always pack for a cruise?
My charger for my phone and the charging brick for my phone. And then like sunscreen and
Yeah,
of
those are
course a
definitely
credit
essentials.
card and passport. My philosophy is with a credit card and passport, you can go anywhere.
That's so true.
That's very true.
That's what I
Rack up
always
those miles.
check before I leave. I always check passport, cell phone, credit card. All right, if I lose anything else, I'll figure it out.
Exactly.
That's amazing. But thank you, Theresa, so much for being on the show. Before we wrap up, what advice would you give someone who wants to start planning their next cruise adventure?
Do your research. Remember that adventure can be in cold climates or warm climate. A lot of people think, oh, Antarctica or Alaska, but you can go to the Galapagos or the Kimberley in Australia, but that has lots of things that eat you. I'm too afraid to be that adventurous because I can't run. Since I don't see well, I can't run fast from whatever there is there. And maybe practice at home. If you don't know what kind of outdoor experience you want, go to a local park and go hiking or go kayaking or whatever outdoorsy means to you. And always take a partner because if anything happens, I don't know if you've heard of people who fell in Alaska. It's like the buddy system's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. Take a friend. Thank you so much, Theresa. We really appreciate you being on the show. And I know, I'm definitely considering one of those, small luxury cruises right now. I'm sure I'm going to poke around on the internet and try to find one because that's what I
There's a
do.
nice mid-range. Look at like Azamar Windstar.
I'm going to go check them out.
Very
I know, it's
nice.
like
And there's
we're-
others. Four
We're always in
Seasons.
search of something new. So
That's
we're
right.
going to manifest the Four Seasons who's going to sponsor us. And then we're going to go cruising and report back.
Sounds good.
So, Theresa, where can our listeners find you?
I mean, a couple places. I just started a podcast for people who are, I'll say, older and who have later in life had some kind of physical events, like maybe you got a new hip, you lost some of your vision, you have digestive, whatever, but you still want to travel. So that's called Living the Could Life. And we just put the podcast out yesterday, I think.
Congrats!
That's amazing. That's so cool. We'll definitely be
talk
sure to
about
put it in the show
could
notes.
for somebody I had a podcast 20 years ago and it just didn't take off. But I thought, oh, I can do it a little
Yeah.
slower.
You got this. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool. We'll definitely link it in the show notes for you. That's like a
Okay.
really awesome concept, and I'll definitely listen.
Okay, good.
But thank you so much again, Theresa. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. We want to give Theresa a huge thank you for joining us and sharing her experience on how to choose the right cruise, especially for those who may be thinking about their very first one. And maybe like myself and Rachel, maybe a little bit hesitant, but now we're informed and ready to go. Theresa reminded us that cruising doesn't have to be overwhelming. With a little planning and the right travel advisor and the right mindset, it can be an incredible way to see the world, explore new destinations, and meet amazing people along the way. So, if today's episode has you dreaming about your next trip, maybe even your first cruise, we hope that it gave you the confidence to start planning today. So, we'll make sure to include all of Teresa's information on the show notes. And as always, don't forget to follow us on socials at Bon Voyage Besties. Give us a review and subscribe to our channel. Thank you, and hopefully, we catch you on the Four Seasons cruise ship one day.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, let's do it.
Hey.
So, bon voyage, besties. I'll see you on a river
Yes,
cruise
thank
all over
you.
Europe.